Now let's have a look at something called CSS specificity. CSS specificity decides which rule applies if multiple rules have different selectors. So right now we were discussing that, okay, don't try to have, so for simplicity, let's move this also to here only, because internal and external, we understood that it's just a matter of ordering. uh, in this context, just we will have a simple example where all our styles which are conflicting, they are here in internal style sheets. Okay, now and let's remove this also, because we know that this is going to be having the highest priority. So if this is there, then there's no order in talking about this internal style sheet. So the idea is that if there's no internal, there's no inline styles, then among internal, see that both of these are having same selector, right? Both are having this same selector, and that's why we see that whichever is coming last. So right now, if red is coming last, then red. If blue is coming, so right now red is coming last, so red is there, right? But what if they are different selectors? What if they are different selectors? Okay, so for example, let's say this is like normal div. Okay, this is div, and this is dot my div, which means that this rule is targeting simply all divs. Okay, and this rule is targeting all the elements having class is equal to my div. Okay, now let's refresh and see what happens. It is still red. You might think that this is written later, and that's why this is red. Actually, that is not the case. You see that if I put it below, okay, then what is happening is that this color red here is there and color blue is there, but if I refresh, still it is red only, which means that doesn't matter this thing is above or below, this thing is taking more priority over this thing. And why is that? That is because specificity of this thing is higher than specificity of this thing. Okay, let's see that. So type and element selectors have less specific, means there is something called specificity score, which you will see in a bit. But you can understand it like this, that the order in which something is more specific or less specific, that is the order in which they are awarded some score. Okay, so right now for simplicity, you can understand that something which is less specific is given less score and is given, therefore given low priority. Something which is more specific is given higher score and it is having higher priority. Okay, so we'll see that type or element selector, so something like div, this is having low score and it is less specific. And class selector is more specific. Okay, class selector is more specific. Thirdly, and that's why what is happening is that even if this thing is written above, but since this is like having more weightage in terms of the specificity score, and that's why it is given more priority. And even if it is written before color blue, then also the color red is applied. Okay, next thing is that id selector is even more specific. So this is the order in which this is actually not order. You can understand that there is something called universal selector, which is uh, which is having zero score. So you write anything, so this is the least specific, this is the least specific. Then you can understand second least is element or type selector, then class selector, then id selector is the highest one. So you can understand, like it should be written at the top if it is in the order of least to highest. Okay, now you see that yeah, so let's say that nothing is there. Okay, if nothing is there, then obviously this is black, that is fine. But if I write something like star, and let's say color is let's say blue violet, then you see that this is now blue violet. But as soon as I start putting anything, as soon as I start putting anything, okay, let's say even I put only right now so you understand that we discussed that this is like least. After that, element selector. So element selector is going to overwrite element select, doesn't matter where you write. Even if you write this before stars, then also it will overwrite, because this is having more specificity than universal selector. Okay, Now you see that when we refresh this, then this is going to have blue, because this blue is defined here. Okay, next, let's say we write this thing, dot my div. Now what is happening? This thing, again we know that the class selector is more specific than type selector or element selector, right? And that's why this will be given more priority, and that's why it will now become red. Again, where you write this doesn't matter, even if you write below, at the top, doesn't matter. Next thing is that if we write something like id selector, so let's give it some id. So let's say id is equal to my id or something, and this my id, let's give a style corresponding to this with this selector my id, and let's give some color green. Okay, now you see that this has become green, this has become green irrespective of where you write. Okay, now ordering, see, if specificity is different, then ordering does not matter. Wherever it is there, it does not matter. Wherever it is there, it does not matter. This thing will be given more priority because this thing is having highest specificity right now. Okay, if the specificity is same, then we are going to see that the ordering, what is ordering. So for example, let's say this is not there. So right now we see that it is green, right? But let's say this thing is not there, this thing is not there, then it has become red. But that red is because of this rule, right? And if this selector, you again write something like this is invalid rule dot my div, and let's say you write color is equal to pink, right? Then what will happen? This is red, but this is having same specificity as this. So actually in the case in this case this is equal, and that's why whatever rule comes later, that is being applied. So you will see that this will become pink, this will become pink, right? And again, if the same specificity is there, then if let's say this would have been above, then it would be red because it is later. And if I comment this, then this will again become pink, because now this blue thing is overwritten by this thing color pink, because this class selector has more precedence than element selector. So now you understood, right? This is the idea behind specificity, that if various different selectors are there, then how they are going to interact with each other, and which of them will be going to be given more priority, right? And the so finally this we discussed that the rules with selectors which are having higher specificity or higher score, that wins. Now what is this score I'm talking about? If you see, then you'll see, if you highlight, let's say over div, okay, then you will see something like in VS Code, then you will see something like selector specificity 0 comma 0 comma 1, right? What is that? So that is what this is sort of a tuple. You can understand that 0 comma 0 comma 1, you can understand it like 001 or something. So whatever score and if you see that with my div, then if you see here, it is 0 comma 1 comma 0. So you see that this here 1 is at units place, just you can understand it like that, 1 is at units place. Here also 1 is there, but 1 is at tens place, sort of, right? So this is like higher precedence, right? And similarly, we earlier saw that something like let's say my id is there, right? Let's say my id is there, right? Then this thing is going to have, let's say 100, right? Which means that it is even more higher specificity. It is like at hundreds place, right? So this thing is at 010, this thing is 100, right? So this is highest priority, and that is exactly we discussed here, that this id is the highest priority, and that's why it is 100. Class selector is like lesser than that, and that's why it was 010. This is like more or less than that, and that's why it was 001. Okay, this thing was 001. And if you see universal selector, you will see that specificity is 0 comma 0 comma 0, which means that it is the least score among all the different various selectors, and that's why its specificity is going to be minimum. And again, If specificity is different, then obviously the higher specificity one will be given priority. But if the specificity is same, then priority is decided based on the source order. Source order means what? The order in which it appears in the style sheet, which we discussed, that whichever comes last, that is going to be having more priority. Okay, so now this is what I was showing you earlier in VS Code. Here for clarity, I have put down at one place. So something like ID selector will be given 100, so it's the highest. Okay, and then class is having, like, at tens place it is having 010, so it is slightly lower. In fact, if you have attribute selector, that is also having the same as class selector. Okay, so it is also having 010. Okay, now something like hover is also having 010. But from here the element selectors and pseudo element selector, so all the pseudo classes are having same as class normal class attribute, normal class selector specificity. But elements and pseudo elements, these are what, before after selection, these are what, pseudo elements, right? So pseudo elements and normal elements, these are like at units place simply one is there, so it is the lesser than this class and all selectors, right? And finally this universal selector is having 0 comma 0 comma 0. And in fact some other pseudo so almost all the other pseudo classes are other than not, they are having 010 specificity. But not pseudo class is a special case where it is 000. And on top of that, all the combinators, they also have 000 specificity, so they will not matter. So for example, if you see something like let's say I write okay, so before going to that, let's see something more, that we can combine. So I know that my this thing, let's say dot my div, right? I could have written something like body space my div. Okay, now you see that what is happening, that the specificity is 011. Okay, and you understand that specificity is not of body, specificity is not of dot my div, because this whole thing is one selector. This whole thing is one selector in our case, right? And that's why this, whatever you see, this either you over here or here, this whole thing is having the specificity of 011. So specificity is decided for the whole selector. Okay, now what is this 011? So basically what is happening is that this 011, the at tens place what the 1 is there, that is coming from that class part, you know that it has 010, and it is added with the 001, which is for body, right? So that's why this is 011. Okay, if you write something like dot let's say my class 2 or something like that, whatever, then you see that it is 020. Why? Because each of the class selectors have 010, and that's why here there are two selectors, and making the combinedly one selector, and that's why it is going to be 010 plus 010, and that's why it is 020. And this is what I was saying, that if you have something like this thing, then you see that or not, then these don't affect. So let's try that out. Let's say I have something this, let's say arrow. In fact, space earlier was there, that was also not affecting. Right now also if you see, it is still 010. Or if you have something like plus selector in that, that is also, you see that whether plus combinator or arrow combinator, all these are not adding to anything, right? And you see that since if I write something like star space, right, this will also not add anything. It is still 020. Why? Because this is again, star is having like 0 specificity, right? So that is not affecting anything. And now again, if you see something like let's say I do let's say not this thing, we discussed that we should not use not, but just for the sake specificity, we see that still it is 020, because this not is not adding any specificity. The specificity is only for .mydiv and .myClass, which both are having specificity in 0, which are both are having the specificity of 010 and that's why the whole specificity of the entire selector is 020. Okay, now now we will come to more complicated cases. So like here we are combining two or more of them, right? So we'll come to more complicated cases, but right now let's simply take a few examples to illustrate these things. So we saw earlier that simply div is there, simply one class is there, simply one id is there, so all those were simple, right? But now now let's see some example of this attribute selector. So let's say that I have dot my class. Let's say I have dot my class, and let's remove everything else, clean it up right now. And let's say I have another thing which is class selector. Let's say class is equal to and my div, and then color, let's say red. Okay, now you see what is happening. So its specificity is 010, its specificity is also 010. So what will happen, that it will be given more priority because it is coming later in the style sheet, and that's why the color will be red. Okay, now you see that if I move this above, then what is going to happen, again both are having same specificity, but this thing is coming later, and that's why it will be blue. Okay, yeah, but that will not be the case when a specificity is different. So for example, let's say I write my id here, my id is blue, right? Then it is blue, yeah, it is blue. But why it is blue? Because not because it is coming later, because it is having higher specificity. So you see 1,0,0 is its specificity, and here it is 010. So irrespective of where it is there, it will always, even if it is before, always the priority will be for blue because its specificity is higher. So you see I refresh, but still it is blue even if it is coming before. Okay, so yeah, so we have discussed normal things. Let's see a few more complicated examples. So let's say if you have again if you have something like dot id dot my div or something like that, then you see that again the same thing will happen. It is 110. So why? Because my id, that id selector is having 1,0,0, and this dot my div is having 0,1,0, and that's why combinedly it is 1,1,0. Okay, and if you put space here, then also it is same. You can see that this, or you put arrow, then also it is same. You understand? So these things don't matter here. That's what I'm trying to say, that if it is, let's say this is a 1,0,0, this is 0,1,0, and that's why there is 1,1,0. If both are classes, then 010 both now it is 020, right? Again, if there is, even if there is a space, doesn't matter, still it will be 1,1,0. And again, any sort of combinator you put, then also it will not affect, it will still be 1,1,0. Here we saw that no space is there, then it was 020. Even if you put space, again it will be the same, it will not impact, any sort of combinator will not impact, and that's why 020. Again, this thing is important. So you see that if you simply write div, then that is 001. But if you write body div, then again in a similar manner like earlier, it will be added. So it will be 0 0 0 2. You understand? So what disadvantage, what is this advantage giving, is that let's say you write simply something like this, div color blue, and later you write div color red. Okay, then we see that the specificity is same, right? Then obviously this will be red, but if I move it above, then it will be blue. Why? Because this is coming later. But you know what, if we write something like here body space, which is essentially same, everything is inside body, right? So we can write everything like this, body space div. But now the color is now becoming red. Why? Because this thing is now having 002 specificity, and this is now 001 specificity. So this thing is higher, right? And that's why this is going to take precedence irrespective of where you are. And again, if you have both body div, then again the priority will be given to the later one, because now both are 002, right? But then again, you can do something like HTML body div, right? Now it will become 003, okay, and it is 002. So now again, the priority will be given to red. So in that matter, you understand that how specificity is impacting our style sheets, right? If specificity is different, then definitely we are going to go with higher specificity. If they are equal, then all these things of ordering and source code ordering of style sheets matter. And so it is 002, 003, and again, if you have something like this thing or something like complicated, just don't so a simple thing is that you can simply hover and see the specificity in VS Code rather than calculating on your own. But you can calculate on your own also very easily. So for example, here I know that we discussed that all the elements are having 001, and all the whether they are class selectors or pseudo class selectors, both are having 010, right? So what is happening here is that div and colon before, both are like both are like element and pseudo element. That's why it is 002 for both of them, and this 010 is for this hover part, right? Because this is the pseudo class. For pseudo class. Now here we will see that okay, everything is same, but now this div is replaced by this, so now it is 100 rather than 010, and that's why this 100 for this part, 010 for this hover part, and 001 for this part. So overall it is 111. Again, here if you see that this is element, A is element, Li is element. So this is 1 and 1 2. So at the units place, this is 2, and this thing is class this is attribute selector, and this is class selector, right? So class selector and attribute selector both are having priority 010. So combinedly 010, and this href, this part is again attribute selector, again this is 010. So overall it is 020. So 020 and 002 combinedly it is 022. And a similar manner you can see that here it will be 221. Okay, so you can understand that how to calculate specificity and how it is going to impact your style sheet. This is very important. Here we are not discussing any new syntax or something, but the idea is that while debugging your CSS code, it is very important to understand that how CSS specificity works, so that you can debug that why some style is applied or not applied. Okay. And again, like we are discussing that in this sense, you can understand that, you know what, I already said that different class selectors are there. But if I write directly here some style, okay, I write something here, style color red, okay, then what was happening, that this was having the highest priority irrespective of what. So you can understand it something like this, that yeah, its specificity is like higher than everything. So you can understand something like that, its specificity is 1 0 0 right? So whatever be the specificity of these things, like 003 002, even if you have something like id not id body, let's say something like body and hash div or something like that, then it is going to having specificity 1 0 1. Then you can understand that yeah, this is 1 0 1, this is like units place, tens place, hundreds place. But this thing style attribute in a sense has like 1 0 so this is like higher than all of them. That's why this thing will take more priority above everything else. So you can mentally understand that. However, you don't need to calculate specificity in case of style attribute, because blindly you can say that anything which comes here is given more priority. But internally, this thing might be implemented something like this in the CSS engine which browsers implement, right? Next we'll see something called CSS inheritance in the next video. For now, we'll complete this video. We'll see you in the next one.